Hi everyone and welcome to another pick a card reading. For today we have a very special subject which I named What is your Uranian uniqueness, and advices and tips on how to put it to good use. Now before we get into the reading, I would just like to explain the title and how I got inspired to do this subject. Well, you kind of guessed it, that it's astrology themed. Because right now we have Uranus standing still in the sky, preparing to go retrograde. And if I'm not mistaken, it's gonna go retrograde on Monday, the 23rd of August 2021. But of course this reading is timeless. This can be basically applied at any given moment. It doesn't really have to be this year. It can be valid any year at any moment. Just that when a planet goes retrograde, amongst many other things, it also means that we embody it that much stronger, that much more. And the symbolism of Uranus, well, first of all, it represents our uniqueness, our distinctiveness, that which makes us stand out from the crowd, from the collective, from basically anyone else. It's almost like every single living person on the planet has a different genetic configuration. Even twins are a little bit different from one another. And Uranus symbolizes this distinctiveness of ours, that which is only unique to us personally. Now, certain astrologers go even deeper than this. Uranus is the higher octave, a more superior expression of Mercury. And if Mercury is our mindset, our learning, our conditioned self, so to speak, well, Uranus is our divine self, that which we were created to be and embody. So this pick a card reading kind of takes a look at what gift that Uranus gave to you personally, and certain tips and suggestions of how you can put it to good use, how you can make it an even greater blessing in your life by embodying it. And also, at a period when Uranus stands still in the sky, it's more active than any time else, so that is usually the time for epiphanies, brainstorming, eureka moments, etc. So I'm hoping that this might have an inspirational influence on everyone listening to this reading. Now, with this being said, the instructions are simple as always. Just take a look at the 4 piles of cards and then choose the one which appeals to your intuitive senses the most. And also for this particular reading, I would really suggest not just to trust blindly your intuition, just listen to the first couple of minutes of each pile, because I will start by explaining your uniqueness and distinctiveness, and if that resonates, just continue listening. But if it doesn't resonate, then perhaps you should try another pile. And like always, timestamps can be found in the description below and also in the comments. So thank you so much for listening, and now let's begin our reading. Hello everyone who has chosen the first pile. The card depicting your Uranian uniqueness is the Justice card. Now, even before we try and dig into its symbolism, perhaps this Justice card represents that maybe you are born under the sign of Libra, or you have a very strong Libra energy in your chart, or maybe in your personal chart, the 7th house is very, very active. Maybe it's packed with planets, even if it's not Libra. Or it can also represent that one of the biggest karmic lessons in your life was about balance, was about how to make a clear judgment, how to see things from a very balanced perspective. And naturally, since you were inspired to focus on that, by the universe guiding a lot of karmic events with this theme in your life, you kind of mastered that, so it comes to you naturally. Now, first of all, this Justice card represents that you had to learn how to temper your very active Uranus, because Uranus doesn't like balance. Uranus actually likes chaos, extremes, and imbalance. So maybe you are the kind of person who actually figured out how to balance out a hyperactive Uranus. Maybe you had ADHD as a child, or you were extremely active, you were very, very intelligent, you were extremely bright, but in a very rebellious way. You always knew how to outsmart other kids, even adults, especially your parents. You always had your way, got what you wanted. But of course, the price for that was doing extreme gestures or approaching certain situations from an extreme perspective. But the skill that you kind of developed from having to cope with mental hyperactivity in the past turned out to be like almost a sixth sense of yours, where you can just interpret absolutely anything. And this not just from, a spiritual or philosophical perspective, but even from a very, very down-to-earth perspective. The first example that comes into my mind is to know how to interpret the law. You might not need any kind of training, education in this sense. When you read the law, the text, you just know what to make of it. You know its weaknesses, so to speak, but also that which is absolutely imperative in it. And this gives you the tactical advantage to know how to use it in your favor, in other people's favor, and of course know how to contest it when it's unfair or it's imperfect. Now, of course, another way that you could use this very special skill of yours is to interpret people. Because, when people speak, either through their mimics or the words that they use, or body language or anything, they just give very clear signs of what their true intentions are, what their true feelings are. You have this very special sense to be able to detect a liar, a fake person, someone who just pretends regardless in which context or in which sense, someone who is faking something, someone who is mimicking, someone who is not being original, or someone who is a try-hard. So basically this gives you a very good idea of who you're dealing with in the very first moments when you have a conversation or you basically come face to face with that person. Even if it's not face to face, even if it's just messaging or written communication, even letters, etc., you have this very special skill to just kind of know who you're dealing with. Now, this doesn't mean that you actually use this practically, because, this also has to involve that you have to trust your judgment. So some of you might have actually learned to trust your judgment, and this acts like a really powerful people GPS inside of you. And those of you who haven't learned yet to trust your judgment, well, you kind of still get to the conclusion that your first impression was really spot on. So you're actually in the process of trusting yourself and trusting your perceptions. Now, another very strong consequence of this Libra energy that you embody is that you know how to represent, and this in so very many senses. Know how to represent a group of people, know how to represent yourself, know how to depict the situation in a very clear manner so everyone can understand it. And perhaps the biggest and most positive expression of this energy, you know how to build a bridge with another person regardless of their education, background, social position, mental capacities. So you kind of know how to understand people, and this is always and always a plus. Even when you are in a conflict with a person, even when you're being opposed by a person, simply knowing where they stand from and why they do react, behave the way they do is always, a doorway to greater wisdom. And at the end of the day, being able to understand others implicitly means that you're able to understand yourself as well. And understanding yourself means that you're able, in so very many times in life, to put yourself in other people's position, in other people's shoes, so to speak. So this leads to a greater sense of empathy, where that empathy is not really magical or strongly intuitive, but it is something which you can actively use all the time, because it is mental, it is intellectual in this sense, because just look at the sign of Libra. On one scale there's the mind, on the other scale there is the heart, the head and the heart. And that means that you can find a delicate balance between what is logical, rational, and what is, comes from the heart space. So what is loving? And as I said earlier, the biggest gift in all of this is that you have a really well-functioning inner GPS which can guide you through life, situations, relationships, and naturally even spiritually, emotionally. So this is a really, really good skill that can be used in absolutely anything that exists in the human world. And even when, let's say, in the most extreme cases, karma is against you, you need to be in a bad situation, etc. How many of us have not experienced this throughout our lives, regardless of how skilled we were, wise we were, etc. But this unique gift, this unique talent really helps you even in those situations, because once you very, very quickly and let's say effortlessly understand what the point of that karmic lesson is or that situation, well, it means that you won't live it in extremes. And when you don't live it in extremes, reaching balance once more comes that much easier. And not only can you help yourself with this, but also your family, your friends, everyone who would be wise enough to ask your counsel. And this actually leads to yet another expression of this energy. You're a really, really good advice giver. Even in things which you might not have big experience with, or you might not have knowledge with, you can still give a really safe and sound and, standing advice. Exactly because you're able to put yourself in that other person's position. So all you need to do is ask yourself, what would you do if you were that other person? And since your inner Uranus has a lot of ingeniousness, inventivity, and also creativity to it, well, the answer will come straight away. In the worst case scenario, you can simply tell the person who a much better advice giver would be, where to seek for answers, who to look for, who to contact, who to ask advice from. Now let's take a look at the other cards, which are advices, tips, maybe inspiration of how you can use this Uranian gift that you possess. And the first card is the Three of Coins reversed. Now the Three of Coins is the card of work, and basically this work can be interpreted in every sense possible. It can also represent cooperation, collaboration, and lucrative purposes. It can also represent how to learn something, how to learn to work with something, how to build something, reaching mastery, apprenticeship, or learn anything by actually doing it. And in reverse position, well, it usually represents when something is not working any longer. So the first interpretation that comes into my mind is, because of this good judgment of yours, and because of this innate ability to just know how to reach a state of balance, you can fix things which are no longer working because of a blockage, because of whatever the reason is. And of course, naturally, some of you guys actually embody this quite physically. you have like an innate talent how to fix even objects which don't work anymore, let's say cars or computers or whatever this may be. You have a curiosity to basically know how things work, how they tick, how the inner mechanisms make something function. So your curiosity might have led you to have a little bit of knowledge, and simply your intuition can guide you to just know how to fix things. Maybe some of you actually chose that as a job, as a career. Maybe you're like, I don't know, an electrician. This also represents programmer or software tester. This can also represent like if you work in the beauty industry because you symbolically may improve something. So whatever it is that you do, you basically make something more harmonious. Or even if you do this on an amateur level, well, it can save you resources, money and time when something is not, like broken in a way that it's dead, it's done with. If it only has a minor problem, well, chances are you can actually fix that. Now, from a totally different perspective, this Three of Coins represents work legislation. So when, a work environment, maybe the relation of colleagues or the balance of power and hierarchy within a company or a work environment is disharmonious, you have all the right kind of solutions to fix this or to improve the situation. Maybe some of you actually have like proper experience with work legislation. You know how to help someone who might be facing problems of this nature. So, something which has to do with the legal side of employment, etc. Or maybe they had an accident, something happened at work and they need compensation or they need representation like a syndicate or how you call that. You're also very good at being the voice of a collective, even at work. Even if this is not really official, you might be that person who will speak up in behalf of a group, certain people, or you might represent as a natural instinct a disadvantaged colleague, someone who doesn't know how to express themselves as well as you do, or even friends and family. Maybe you have to phone a company, you have to represent someone in an official matter, and if they struggle with this, you can very quickly jump to their help, to their aid, because you just know how to voice things in a very clear manner. And of course, you cannot be deceived, you cannot be made empty promises, because you will know things for what they are as soon as it is spoken. Now, another interpretation of the Three of Coins reversed is that you have really, really good and unique and highly ingenious business ideas. Maybe if a business is struggling or trying to reinvent itself or something is blocked there, you can very quickly have good ideas or find a way, an ingenious way to make it work again. So basically what you do with this justice energy is that you turn that Three of Coins reversed around so that it works, so that the flow is there, so that whatever was blocking it can be fixed and it can work again in any sense, business sense, physical sense, legal sense, even spiritual sense. And last but not least, this Three of Coins reverse can also represent that you are a really good advice giver for people who are looking for a job, or people who are totally lost career-wise. They don't know what to do with themselves, with their talents. So you might actually have true skills as, how you even say that, recruitment, special talent seeker or something like that. You're a really, really good advice giver. May that be officially, as in that is what you do, or just as a friend, just as someone who can inspire people. Also, this Three of Coins reverse can also represent that if there is no strings attached. For example, you're doing something out of charity when there is no payment, money, reward involved, when you're just doing it for the sake of doing it. That is when you're in your true position of power, because you have a freedom to just be your very, very best self. So perhaps later on in your life, when you won't need payment, when you won't need compensation, you might start either a charity of your own, or perhaps be part of a charity and you really, really do good. Now next we have this Temperance, and this is quite a spiritual card. The Temperance is actually another major arcana which symbolizes balance, stability, the well-functioning of things, where the state of flow is in harmony, not in excess, not blocked, not afflicted by anything. So once again, this represents the potential of what balance and harmony measure, and knowing what the good measure is. A really good judgment, for example. So what it can do, not just physically from a very human perspective, but also spiritually. And this actually triggers your intuition. Whenever you don't possess knowledge over something, whenever you cannot figure things out mentally, intellectually, your intuition straight away comes to your help. And this can guide you exactly in those areas of life, in those situations when you are not familiar, where you don't have knowledge, where you don't have experience, when you don't have expertise. Just let me give you an example. If you go into like a naturalist shop, herbal shop, where they sell like natural remedies, teas, herbs, oil, you get the idea. You will just intuitively know what the best possible herb, supplement, vitamin, oil, whatever it is for you, whatever suits your situation the most. And this also represents that you have a very special connection to plants. So it's almost like the spirit of plants, if this makes sense for you personally, kind of inspires you to just simply know what the best remedy is. And maybe this is something karmic, maybe this is something where your soul has a relationship with nature, of course a harmonious one. So this comes as a karmic reward which serves you in any existence. You might have done something really, really admirable for nature or the spirit of plants, and there is a very, very strong connection. This might also suggest any other kind of holistic healing techniques which, as I say, you might not possess much knowledge over, but it's where your intuition, even your instincts just guide you. For example, maybe massage. You just maybe know what to do without anyone ever having to tell you, teach you. And basically the result just speaks for itself. But of course this can be applied to any situation where the choices and preferences you have to make. Let me just give an example. As I said earlier, which plant or natural remedy might be better for you, which crystal to choose. Needless to say that this is perfectly valid for anything that has to do with aesthetics. So what color suits best a person, makeup, clothing, a good sense of fashion and aesthetics in everything, because you like the harmony of it. So aesthetics is all about harmony, symmetry, and where the symmetry has to be imperfect, well, that is also balance. Because if the imperfection is in a very good measure, as in not in excess, just the right shape, size, measure, etc., well, it leads to greater harmony, it leads to beauty, it leads to uniqueness. So this actually makes you a great advisor, even from an aesthetic point of view, in any kind of beautification, any kind of, alchemy, because that is what beautification is. We transmute something into a more harmonious or beautiful or sometimes uglier, more grotesque version of it, but that is basically the art of everything. And if we apply this in a reverse sense, well, you're also a very good critic, where your criticism is constructive and never harsh or, malevolent, where you just want to criticize. So all of this point to the fact that you're a really good advice giver in so very many areas of life. And finally, we have the 10 of Cups, which is very, very simple. You're a really good advice giver from an emotional perspective as well, because you have that very special sense of empathy and the good intention, the goodwill to go with it, and also knowing when to stop, knowing when not to give advice. So this points to the fact that you could very well be a psychologist, a therapist, even a hypnotherapist if you wanted to, because you're the kind of person who truly understands that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, so you know when to genuinely help and support, but you also know those situations when you had to stop, withdraw yourself, or simply passively or indirectly help that other person figure out their own path, their own healing, etc. And last but not least, all of these cards might have a spiritual connotation. Justice is the diplomat, the sign of Libra, where you connect the heavens and the earth. So you might also be a really good channeler, a divine messenger, a diplomat who represents the divine or ethereal planes, and vice versa, who represents the more earthly plane, and you negotiate with the divine plane. So if you're into any kind of spiritual practice, channeling and basically invoking divine help or divine guidance might truly be your strong point, and it could inspire you in so very many different ways, maybe even artistically. Maybe if you have no artistic skills that you know of, try channeling and just allow your body, your being to do it on autopilot, and you might actually be surprised of what it is that you can create or write or anything. So this is what the cards have to say for you guys. I hope that you enjoyed it and you found it useful. Thank you for listening. Until next time, bye for now. Hello everyone who has chosen the second pile. The card which depicts your Uranian distinctiveness is the 9 of Wands. Now first of all, this may immediately suggest either that you're a fire sign, or you might have your natal Uranus in the sign of Sagittarius, regardless of which house it is, or it can also represent that you have a lot of planets in your 9th house, and that is where your uniqueness and distinctiveness comes from. Now, first of all, the name of the card is almost self-explanatory. Well, it says great strength. But, this is a little bit ironic because it's literally true that the 9 of Wands is a card which depicts a lot of power, a lot of energy, a lot of passion, the inner fire. But it's not really something which is constantly active, because it does depict a moment or certain moments in life when it is activated. It is like a volcano erupting. So whatever this great strength symbolizes for you personally, it only becomes active online, so to speak, when you're in a situation of great pressure, great urgency, when the stakes are very high, when either you have to take a risk or the situation is kind of urgent, or you might find yourself in a situation, regardless of which nature, when there are no really any rational or logical ways out, And that is when your Uranus, when your distinctiveness, when your uniqueness, your true brainstorming comes to the surface and almost miraculously solves the situation with great strength. Now, to translate this energy and the symbolism, well, it means that you're people who are really, really resourceful. And this resourcefulness, well, of course, it only becomes as powerful, as distinctive, as unique as it can possibly get when the situation requires it. When life is easy, when something can be solved, the usual way with great ease, well, of course, you're not gonna tap into that resourceful energy of yours, that inner ingenuity, because it would be a waste of energy, or maybe it would be arrogance. When it is not needed, when it is not required, it's not going to be active, because if this would be active all the time, you would just burn yourself out for a lifetime. So that's why this is almost like an inner reservoir of divine power which comes to the surface when it is needed. May this be a situation or circumstance, or may this represent your own effort, your own active methodology to tap into that ingenuity and resourcefulness of yours, because basically you judge that the situation would be much better if you do it your way, for example. Now, this Nine of Wands is a very mutable energy, so it's extremely adaptable. That means that it's not just one area of life or one specific thing that you're able to express and explore your ingenuity, but it's very, very versatile. It can just simply come to you as a light bulb moment, as a eureka moment, as an epiphany in any situation, in any area of life, even those which are actually not very susceptible to this, because all of us have weak points, all of us have things, areas where we're really not good at, where we lack knowledge, we lack interest, we lack skill. But of course, this won't make you a master. It will just give you the means to, be strong, solve the problem, fix the situation, or find your way for a short moment of time until the urgency is no longer an urgency, if this makes sense. Now, also what's very specific is that you cannot keep this up for long. This inner burst of power comes as quickly as it goes, and it also tires you out a lot. But basically that is the price you have to pay. The inner pressure is like a volcano where, it erupts, the pressure is there, but after the eruption, it won't be as active anymore. It will return to a state of more passivity. And it will only erupt again once it builds up that inner power, the pressure, whatever it is needed. So that is how this inner mechanism of yours functions. It has to feed itself. The fire, the fuel has to build up. And when the situation becomes the trigger, the pressure, it erupts. And then it has to go back to a dormant state so it can feed itself, recharge its batteries once more. But the good thing is that this is the universal kind of energy where, as I said, it can be applicable to any kind of situation in life. It is more like a divine help, like a divine spark of great inspiration and power that comes out from within you. And of course, there are moments when you don't need this personally at all, but someone who you love, someone who you care about, or someone who you decide that you want to help needs this, and that also acts the same way, even when it is for another person. And maybe because of this, you became maybe more than once in your life, the savior of the day, the savior of the situation, a symbolical hero whose plan or idea or ingenious way of doing things or resourcefulness helped something which seemed to be extremely difficult to fix otherwise. And now the other cards are suggestive of how you can use this inner volcano of yours, this great divine strength, to make your life better or in very practical ways. And the first card is the Two of Wands reversed. Now this kind of speaks about two possible meanings. One of them is of course conflict. When one wand represents your sovereign will and the other wand represents another person's sovereign will, and you see the symbol of Mars, planet of war. Now the good thing is that this card doesn't mean that you're fighting. It doesn't mean that you're actively, how should I say, keeping the conflict alive. It actually means that when the conflict is about to be triggered, you kind of explode like a volcano and you intimidate your opponent, so the conflict will never happen because they will just surrender. So basically it kind of helps you, it protects you, it prevents the conflict, because this inner volcano, this great strength, the Nine of Wands, makes you seem way more threatening or way more powerful than you actually are. And this is, like a self-defense mechanism, and it reminds me of the animal kingdom, when you have those animals who just puff themselves up when they're in danger, or let's say the peacock, who just displays the tail feathers and it immediately changes how the creature is perceived. It seems much bigger, and all those eyes, the optical illusion, so to speak. But also, the most important part is the attitude that doesn't run, it doesn't back off, the contrary. It adapts a defensive stance. Or, other animals use hissing or voice screams. And chances are the predator or the opponent or whatever threatens them is not gonna do anything but back off. Now yet the other expression of this card is not you and not a conflict, but this is the kind of situation when a friend or colleague or another person who you are allied with faces a situation or wants to do something where they're simply not strong enough to do it. They cannot accomplish it on their own. So teaming up with you gives them this great strength of yours. So two wills, two inner fires, so to speak, are always better than one. And a person who has you as their ally, as their helper, as their support, or when you combine your strength with that other person, whatever would be impossible for them to achieve alone, well, they're gonna achieve thanks to your resourcefulness, of course. But this Two of Wands requires passion, so it really has to be important. It has to be, for that person you're helping, urgent, or you also have to be strongly motivated to offer them this great strength of yours. Now, the other card is the Justice card, and to me this suggests a certain kind of diplomacy, where when it comes to negotiations, when it comes to things that have to do with fairness or equilibrium, or when a representative is needed, you might be the best possible person to do this kind of role, exactly because of your resourcefulness. Because on one hand, let's say even if the situation is absolutely normal, nothing special, well, this Nine of Wands has also a passive influence within you, which means that you can do your job, you can fulfill your role in a very, very reliable way. So when you have experience at something, or when you feel that You are more than in your comfort zone to do something or negotiate or represent. Well, then, out of everyone, you might be the most reliable person. But if the situation would get, let's say, critical or unusual or have twists and turns, well, then you're also reliable because they know that you can figure stuff out. You will have that pressure moment when your inner resourcefulness just explodes. So you might be that person who is either brave enough, creative enough, crazy enough, take this symbolically of course, who can just solve the situation regardless. Now, yet another expression of this Justice card has to do with intuition and also, let's say, vision, because knowing yourself and knowing your own resourcefulness, your own ingenuity, the sheer strength and also intelligence of your instincts, well, this means being able to identify the same thing, the same 9 of Wands in another person. So when looking for a partner in anything, a colleague, a professional, or a friend, an acquaintance, even in love and romance, you have that very, very special sense to detect or, symbolically speaking, sniff out unique and really, really strong people just like yourself. So the partnership, the contracts, the collaborations, even if it's simple as hiring a professional, a workman or an engineer, an electrician, whatever, to do something, you have this skill, this intuition to choose the best possible people to do it. And vice versa, the opposite, you know exactly who you must not choose. And yet another expression of this Justice card, well, the ruler of Libra, Justice, is a Venus, so your words and this inner passion of yours might be very seductive. So you have a very strong persuasive power, but it's much more your energy, your passion, your playfulness, your, let's say, alpha instincts than, something that you can control mentally. It is your way of being that is very, very seductive. And this kind of extends to everything that you do. Communication, body language, or just looking at someone. And, last but not least, the Justice card can also represent the opposite of balance. In a most positive sense, of course, when, let's say, something is boring, something is just, gray, when something is really way too ordinary, and someone needs to spice things up, regardless what situation or which area of life, well, of course, people are going to come to you because you have that ingenuity, you have that spice, you have that very special something which will distort the balance, making it unusual. So if something is very boring, very linear, very, wishy-washy, you have what it takes to turn it into something fun, something unusual, something unique and distinctive. So you can extend this 9 of Wands energy into anything that you do. And this also makes you very, very creative, and you might not even have to learn it or know how to master it. You just know what to do to add a little bit of color and fun element to everything. So you might be really good at DIYs, anything creative. And the more amateur you are, the less knowledge you have of it, the better, because the results are going to be that much more spectacular. This 9 of Wands can also represent creative chaos. And maybe this creative chaos might be the best use when it's put into like home decorations, when you need to arrange a living space, when you need to improvise certain furniture or items in the home, Or when, let's say, there is an accident, something spills on the walls, you can create that chaos into something artistic. You can mask it, you can turn it into something fun. And last but not least, we have this Ten of Cups. Well, this kind of suggests that you are like a protector, a defender of peace when it comes to either family, when it comes to a group of friends, or when it comes to a collective that you belong to and of course you love. Regardless if the peace is threatened by inner forces, so two family members or two colleagues or whatever are in conflict with each other, or the threat comes from outside, you are definitely one of those people who will do everything in your power to create peace, create harmony. And very many times that is the most difficult thing in life, because if two people are in conflict with each other, well, chances are it needs something truly ingenious, truly resourceful to make two contradictory elements, may it be people or anything, be at peace with each other and to accept each other. And also, this Ten of Cups can represent a really unique sense of humor when you always have this ability to see the funny side of any situation, and this can help everyone who basically listens to you or everyone who is friendly to you to detach from problems, to forget the past, not to be in a dramatic situation for too long, not to self-victimize, not to stay in doom and gloom. So you're almost like a cure, a miracle cure for depression, for anxiety. You make those people who surround you feel safe, feel confident. So basically you extend that Nine of Wands gift energy of yours onto other people, making them their very best selves. So this is what the cards have to say. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Until next time, bye for now. Hello everyone who has chosen the third pile. The card which depicts your Uranian uniqueness is the Ace of Swords reversed. Now before we begin, before we tap into the deeper symbolism of this card, well, the Ace of Swords is very specific to every kind of air sign. And as you know, Uranus rules the sign of Aquarius, an air sign. So it may be that you are either an Aquarius, were born with Uranus in its home sign of Aquarius, or it is also possible for you to have Uranus in your third house or on your ascendant, because this Ace of Swords kind of means that you embody Uranus in a much more literal way than many other people. And what this means, well, Uranus is the archetype of the inventor, you know, the mad scientist, but in the most favorable sense, you know, like Einstein. So you're blessed with great intelligence, you are blessed with a very, very vast mental sphere, but also the curiosity and that inner spark to go with it. Because you know how many people have a really sharp intellect, but they don't know what to make of it, they don't use it really. This Ace of Swords reverse also represents the truth seeker's energy. So basically your curiosity is not just like a sheer curiosity where you want to know things, why, where, when, but you also want to use your knowledge in a very practical sense. You want to do something with it. You want to give meaning to it. You want to also share with other people. This Ace of Swords reversed also represents the archetype of the visionary, where you are always fascinated by anything which has to do with futurism, technology perhaps. Maybe as a child you were really, really fascinated by anything sci-fi, especially space exploration, like Star Trek, Star Wars, X-Files. You love mysteries in any kind of way. You might even love mysteries in a non-Uranian kind of expression, maybe the scorpionic expression, so crimes and investigations, medical and forensic science. You might even love like archaeological work, where you might also have some kind of fascination with ancient civilizations, how they lived, and in their day and age, what was what, how things functioned. Your favorite subjects at school might have also been linked to science. You might have also enjoyed, like science experiments. And you might have dreamed of to become either an inventor, a scientist, a researcher. And because this Ace of Swords is reversed, just take a look at the symbol. When it's in upright position, well, it kind of means that information comes to you and you work with it. But when it's in reverse position, well, it is like a sword which you have to hold and just cut. And the act and symbolism of cutting means investigating, figuring things out, thinking, cutting mysteries or the unknown with the strength of your mind, intelligence, solving problems, or using information, the truth, as a weapon, as a self-defense, as a tool for justice ultimately. But also because it is reversed, you might have got the, how should I say, the not so favorable expression of this Uranian energy, which represents that your mind might be so very vast, your curiosity might be so very strong and burning that you don't really know how to use it to its full potential. So you may have tried so many things in your life and nothing was good enough for you because you saw everything as way too limiting, way too mundane, way not enough futuristic, if this makes sense. And because of this also means that you have a take no BS attitude where you kind of immediately express it, you speak your truth, and you kind of call out people who are not very truthful, or maybe people who live in a deception and delusion and they don't know it. And this Ace of Swords can also represent that you're not a huge fan of mainstream religion, dogma, and anything that has to do with a very deep traditional approach, regardless of what it may be. And this might got you in trouble many times in your life, because other people might have seen you as a rebel, as, a troublemaker. And this is also the energy of the conspiracy theorist, but not someone who consumes this, but someone who truly researches and does the detective work, so to speak. You might also be fascinated with the paranormal, so paranormal investigations and such, how the human psyche works, but the mysterious, the paranormal part of it, if that makes sense, that might be also a subject that you're interested in. And everything that might have to do with alien civilizations, or alien civilizations who left something in the past of our human collective in our history. All of those might be big themes that really spark up your curiosity. Now the following cards are tips and suggestions of how you can use this Uranian uniqueness that you possess. And the first card is the Ten of Swords. Now usually this is one of the scariest cards of the minor arcana, because it is the card of defeat, but this isn't what it means in this case. But simply, if you look at the picture, a man has 10 swords in his back, which means defeat. That's it for him. Whatever his plan or purpose was, well, it ended there and then. He had no choice but to basically surrender it. But what it means as a suggestion, well, it's actually quite the opposite. Those swords are the, let's say, expressions of your intellect, so you really know how to outsmart any situation, any person. And what is very suggestive to me here is perhaps a group of people, so an institution, the law, society and the ways of society, that which is under the tutelage of tradition, or how things always used to be, the modus operandi, which is the mainstream. So you kind of use this energy of yours to outsmart, outplay, or revolutionize even those things, situations which are not susceptible to this. And not only can you use it in your advantage, but also for those people who you truly love and who come to you exactly for this purpose. Like, let me just give you an example. Maybe you have a project and you have to go to, a company or a bank or any representative of the government or society, community, whatever that is, in order to implement your project. And of course you get the answer, no, not possible, we can't help you, you don't meet the requirements, your idea is not good enough, or it's too good, or something like that. And whenever you get these no's, whenever the door is shut in your face, well, that just triggers this Uranus of yours, and you find a way, a means to get what you want, even when it's not legally, officially possible. And basically apply this in any situation. It can be career-wise, it can be at work, it can be outsmarting basically any person who might challenge you, oppose you, create problems. And yet another expression of this energy, well, this actually has to do with the literal sense of the Ten of Swords, a situation which turned out to be something negative, like a defeat. But if it's under a shroud of mystery, they don't know why it happened, how it got here, what was the problem truly, who caused it, maybe there was a saboteur or whatever. You know how to use this skill of yours to investigate. And this investigation skill of yours can be applied to anything in life, Let's say your partner lost, and you share a house, and he lost something, and they just cannot figure out where that object or whatever is, and you start the investigation, and you get the clues, and you finally find it, or at least you're able to tell what happened. Or let's say you are at work and something disappeared, there was maybe a theft or whatever. It is up to you to investigate and at least depict a picture or of how it came to this. So any kind of job, any kind of activity which has investigation to it is really suitable for you, because you are that kind of person who you can very quickly see the clues, see the missing link, make very strong deductions which actually lead to answers. And also, if you're very experienced with something, well, you don't even need to really research or investigate there, because your mind just instantly makes the connections. Call it intuition or call it however you want, but you have the answer straight away. And when you do research it, you will get to the same conclusion which you already thought about. Next, we have the World card, and this is almost like the Ten of Swords, but in the most positive and favorable sense, where it's not really a defeat. This is where you're able to figure things out or come up with the best possible ideas, solutions, in order to get something done, to complete something, or to turn a situation which is not so favorable into a happy ending, a completion, something truly rewarding and positive. So in other words, this is problem solving skills. It might be possible that you have strong Virgo energy in your chart, and Virgo can find solution to absolutely anything, and in very down to earth ways. If a situation can be saved, if a bad situation can be turned around, well, it's definitely you, or you are one of those people who can do this. And the world card, even when you don't have experience, because certain things in life do need practical knowledge, know-how, experience. It's not that you can compensate with your high intelligence, but you can learn everything that you need very, very quickly. So you have this innate ability to soak up experience, even that experience which is not directly your own, like a sponge, and just integrate it. Like, let me just give you an example. You have a problem and you really don't know how to solve it. Your brainstorming just cannot help you this time, but you do know someone who has experience, and you phone them or you contact them and you tell them, please tell me, advise me, or teach me what to do, and that person does exactly as you request. And after taking in the information and even reflecting a little bit, contemplating, making it your own basically, you take that and solve it like a professional with so little help. So this world card means the very, very strong power to learn and make another person's, let's say, experience or know-how, information, knowledge your own. You basically know how to integrate information and just transform it into something very practical, quite almost at a supernatural level, because there are certain things in your life which you have done in this way that are quite hardcore, as in very, very few people could have done that. But what this leads you to, well, it makes you a perfect teacher, because not only can you integrate information, but you can also translate it, share it in a way that it hits the other person's mind like an arrow, so you kind of make sure that they understand it and are able to use it. So basically, your own learning skills can be used in a reverse way to teach. So I'm pretty sure that at least one point in your life, you're going to either become a teacher, a mentor, a trainer, someone who shares the information in the most masterful and ingenious way possible. Now the next card is the Death reversed, and this taps into your ingenuity from a more practical perspective. This kind of means that you have the ability to transform an object, an item, that which can no longer serve its purpose, as something either old, something antique, something broken, or something actually flawed from factory, into something totally else. And this might be your artistic and creative side. Like, let me just give you a practical example, because this is the best way you can actually understand what I'm talking about. Like, some artists use broken watches, broken clocks, and anything which has, those cogs in it. And they create steampunk art of any kind. Some clothing, some statues, others, any kind of decorative item. So that is basically transforming something which can no longer serve its original purpose into something else. And ultimately, this can also have like a truly useful expression, because you can also improvise. For example, use an object or an item with a certain kind of purpose or, destination, and do something unusual with it. Like on YouTube, there are so many videos on how to improvise, where they have these fancy gadgets that do something, and people improvise and use very simple items to do the same thing without any expenses. So stuff like that. And last but not least, the death reverse represent resurrection. So some of you might be passionate about restoring. So like restoring an antique car to how it was originally. Or like a very old PC and just restore it to how it used to be in that time, in that age when it was still considered modern, functional, so to speak. While others still might have a certain kind of passion with collecting antique items. Well, this is what the cards have to say for you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed it and found it useful. Until next time, bye for now. Hello everyone who chose the fourth pile. The card which represents your Uranian uniqueness is a very, very unusual and strange card to appear in this position. It really caught me by surprise because I wasn't expecting this. It's the Three of Swords reversed. You know, for every other pile other than yours, you know, all of the cards which represented the uniqueness, well, it represented a type of energy or archetype which, of course, can be used in a very, very practical manner to make one area of life or perhaps even all areas of their lives by using that very unique energy that they possess better, or, you know, do something with that gift. But for you guys, it's not practical in a literal sense, and it's not even something that you might have ever been able to control, because this is unconscious energy. This is not something that you can consciously tap into. So this makes me think that maybe your Uranus is in your 12th house, or maybe it is in the last decan or last degrees of your 8th house, or maybe it could be that your Uranus is conjunct your Chiron. And the reason for this is that, you know, it was activated, or it kind of started influencing your life at the moment in your past, of course, when you received a very, very painful, a very, very, how should I say, deep emotional wound which left to a very strong trauma that you might have battled with all of your childhood or all of your teens, or maybe even in your 20s, even it might be present even in your life right now, just that the Three of Swords is reversed. So either you healed it, or if it's not subject to healing, because let's just be honest, some traumas, some things can never ever go away. They can just be learned to cope with and alchemized into something else. You know, but whatever it was, it left a very strong heartache. It broke your heart. It shattered your soul. So that's why Chiron comes into my mind, and that's why also it's the 12th house, because it was so intense or so profound or so severe that you became the wound itself. Now understand this symbolically, of course, and spiritually. You became the heartache, the trauma itself, and especially in your young years, maybe your childhood, you kind of enacted that every day of your life, or you enacted that by doing something repeatedly. But you know, you might ask yourself, well, what does a trauma or a heartache or something really bad that happened to you, which shocked you, have to do with Uranus? Well, what this Three of Swords reverse suggests, that it made you somehow so very empathic, almost even telepathic to a certain degree, that you can immediately spot another person's trauma. You can just feel, spot, sense, perceive somehow, and that person doesn't even have to be physically there. You just know their wound, you just know their hurt, you just know what kind of troubles them. And this is exactly the symbolism of Chiron, the wounded healer, because your wound was so severe and it dominated maybe your childhood or your teens, your 20s, all of the things you had to do to cope with it and not allow it to defeat you and become you, and all of your effort and inner work when you had to dissociate yourself from it, heal it, and all of the research that you have done, because this is at the end of the day swords energy. So a part of your healing was emotional, spiritual, of course, but another part was research of psychology. You had to understand yourself. And it might be the case that due to that wound, either you became a profoundly spiritual person, or you became a therapist, a psychologist, a social worker, a coach, a mentor, someone who works every day with wounded people or young people, or helps other people overcome their hurts and pains. For some, this might not even the classical way, as I said earlier, psychology, but it might actually be your art and your artistic expression. Maybe some of you guys chose like a very unusual way to help other people. Maybe you became like a hairdresser, a physiotherapist, a cosmetician, or someone who adds beauty to people, and that's their form of healing. Or others through their painting, art, the classical exceptions of what art is. A singer, music, that's also included here. And what is so very special about this, because of course you're not the only person. How many of us are not influenced by our wounds? How many of us are not actually Chirons in real life from certain different perspective, everyone with their own unique story? But for you guys, it turned into a divine power. Now, what this means might be a little bit different for every person. For some of you guys, the Three of Swords represents the power of prayer. Because of your wounds, it is almost like the divine literally listens to your prayer. It is the symbol of Christ consciousness, the Immaculate Heart. That is what you embody. That is exactly why you had to have those swords stuck into your heart in order to activate that martyr kind of energy, the 12th house again. For others, your empathy, as I said, goes beyond what we call empathy. It is almost like telepathy. You know the wound immediately, so of course you can help much better than even the most experienced hypnotherapist, let's say. For others still, this is such a strong empathy that when you truly love the other person, the love that never was given to you, Chiron, of course, again, you just heal with your energy, or you somehow make another person who is wounded, of course, feel better miraculously. So it's almost like a literal miracle worker, but the requirement for this is that you have to feel the other person's pain through so profoundly that it just triggers this very mysterious heart energy that just heals from within you. Now, the rest of the cards explain what you can do with this, but it's even laughable now because you might already have figured out what you can do with this. First, we have this Four of Wands. Now, this represents family, This represents, a home, but, where a family live. So this is very suggestive that you can heal couples, you can help people somehow fight off or break or purge or purify the karmic patterns that they inherited from their family of origin. You can also help people appreciate and feel extremely grateful for everything that they have in their lives. You can just highlight all the good side of their stories, not just the bad, not just the pain, not just the suffering, because you had to do this for yourself as well. But all of these are more than natural. Of course you can do all of this. It's not a big surprise, is it? But this is where the Four of Wands can also represent a hidden potential, because it's also the card of celebration. So what this means is, because of your empathic abilities, you might be the best kind of event organizer, like weddings, celebrations, birthdays, working with children, even, kindergarten, babysitting and stuff like that. But where the celebration or people coming together and commemorating something is the essence of everything. And because of your empathy, you will just automatically know what color fits best, what location is better, what would delight them and surprise them and make them feel through that celebratory state that much more. So you can use this empathy of yours in a very practical way, even as a business. And when you delight so many customers, because when someone celebrates, it's not about the mind, it's about emotions and the heart and what would delight them the most. And because you can tick every box so easily, imagine the surprises that you can create for a family, or for, if it's a wedding, for a lot of people. So if you ever think about having a business or doing something like a protocol kind of work, you would be the best of the best without having to even lift a finger. You would just know exactly what to do for each case, each client, each event, distinctively. Now next we have the Six of Wands reversed. Now this is so self-explanatory. Six of Wands is Leo. Leo is the heart. Six of Wands reversed, to heal heartache, or to help heal, inspire the inner child of adults, to make a person who suffered a lot of defeat, who suffered a lot of failure, who never ever felt appreciated, who never ever felt even once in their lives that they were on the pedestal, who never felt celebrated ever. You can help that person change their lives around. You can help them change their feelings. You can teach them how to be there for themselves, to be enough for themselves, to make them appreciate themselves, and give themselves everything that other people could not give to them. It is simply helping the vulnerable, whose vulnerability is exactly the heart and the emotions, their creativity, their inner child. For example, you might be a person who could, in a gesture, in just half an hour, make a burned out artist who just cannot find inspiration, who is totally dry of emotion. You could just make their inner sun blaze again in a simple gesture. It is not just your experience, but also your inner. Something about you feeds the hearts of other people. You just have to be in their presence simply. And also, you are the best kind of muse for anyone who is doing anything creative. This just comes to you with great ease. It's just like a divine blessing, really. And last but not least, the Six of Wands reversed. Help people quit addictions or really, really unhealthy passions and obsessions. Like, for example, stop being obsessed over another person who will never want to be their partners, stuff like that. And last, we have the Wheel of Fortune. This isn't even a suggestion, to be totally honest. This kind of says that all those people in your life who are lucky enough to have you as a friend, even as an acquaintance, well, they are gonna be blessed with good fortune. You are like a living, breathing talisman. You are someone totally out of this world, almost like an angelic incarnate or something. And this might be the biggest gift that the universe gave you to compensate you for that heartache that you had to go through. There are kind of people who are so toxic, who are so wild, where chaos, conflict, strife follows their every footstep. You are the opposite of that, where a blessing, a joy, a truth, again, Wheel of Fortune, Jupiter, or simply the presence of the divine follows your every footstep. Maybe you don't feel it as a personal blessing in your life, but those people around you, they are just blessed by having you in their lives. And perhaps the biggest advice of this Wheel of Fortune is, if someone doesn't appreciate you, if someone just takes advantage of this, especially if that person is someone spiritual, so someone who is in the same things as you are, well, you have to end the relationship there and then. Because once you do, you free up space for another soul in your life to enter and have you. You can imagine that how many spiritual people, how many artists are in the world out there who are every day trying to manifest, praying, asking the universe to send them a muse, to send them a truly pure-hearted person, someone with a divine spark within them, like someone who has that pixie dust, if this makes sense, someone who makes life that much more magical. So if you allow certain people to just have you without them deserving it, you're starving those other people who try to manifest you, and maybe those who are trying to attract you in their lives might truly be generous to you, might be kind to you, and might give you back that which you give them as well. So return the magic, return the love, return however they can the appreciation. So whenever your life is seriously blocked, always consider that maybe you have in your life someone who doesn't appreciate you, and you give them infinite chances when you shouldn't have. So maybe the Six of Wands reversed is also a personal message to you that mercy and compassion and understanding also have limits, and when someone kind of exceeds the limit, you have to do what you have to do, because so many other souls on the planet would like to have you in their lives. So why take away their chances? And naturally you would be better off as well, because a lot of people would truly like to express their gratitude and appreciation. And if that is exactly what you lack in your life, that's the reason why, because there is someone there who steals it, who doesn't deserve it any longer. Well, this is what the cards have to say for you. Thank you so much for listening. Wish you a wonderful weekend. Until next time, bye for now.